On Friday at 4 p.m., the four guys were arrested. So that's Mark, Nick, Chris, and yes, Nicholas. They were arrested on Friday at around 4 p.m. at different places. And so they were brought to DCI headquarters and questioned. They were coerced to do statements, which they did. They were given. They were also coerced to give their PIN numbers and phones and laptops, which they complied at that time because they had no other thing to do. And they were told to do statements, which they were against, but they were told to do statements. They were also held in various police stations, 2 in Pangani and 2 at Muthaiga under false publications. They were released on Saturday on free bond. However, the DCI summoned them to come to the headquarters yesterday. So we came with them, we represented them. However, the police refused to give them their items back. And this is against the law. There's no order. Once they were released, they were supposed to be given their phones back and their laptops back and their CPUs they use for work. And this is against the law. They are holding those items against the law, and it should be called. We are calling against what they are doing because one, they are denying these boys from continuing with their businesses, and they are actually stopping the work that they are doing of filmmaking. So we are calling against the DCI and its leadership for what it has done. And further, even them summoning today, it's against their liberty. They are in a constant state of being summoned in the police, coming. So they have no freedom. They have not been given any court date, and we are calling against that. And we are asking the director, to look at what is causing the families and to release those boys, and to also to release the laptops that they use to do their work, so that they can continue with the work that they are doing.
My name is Ode Francis from Citizen TV.
Of this boys to stop the work that they have been doing.
Maybe I can just add just on that one. I think it's important to recognize we brought them here in good faith. They are accompanied by their families, by several lawyers from the Law Society of Kenya and other human rights organizations. As you can see, they have a following, they have a support base, and we have heard emphatically from the DCI that there are no summons that are prevailing in terms of the four individuals. Furthermore, there is no warrant of arrest that has been preferred against any of the four of them. So they are not even persons of interest at this stage. They are not suspects, and we would like them to essentially receive back their property so that they can continue to do what they do, which is essentially to make independent films, which, as far as we understand, is not a crime in this country. The Constitution allows for creative expression, and therefore what we want to say is allow them to have their property back so that they can continue to earn an income for themselves and for their families.
We understand when you brought them, BBC has denied. Now, where does that leave us now that they are part of the process in the BBC?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Sorry, just take up whatever you discussed and then share.
Once again, we came here as legal counsel, as human rights defenders, to essentially ensure that these four boys were not persecuted for crimes that have just not been preferred against them in a court of law. It is law that everybody is presumed guilty until found innocent, until proven guilty by a court of law. So it is very important at this point that they have the legal protection, the full legal protection of our law and legal counsel. We came to the DCI to essentially establish, is there a case against these four individuals? We have been told there is no case. They have not been summoned. There is no warrant of arrest for them. So therefore, we are now making the call for them to have their property released back to them so that they can continue doing what they do, which is essentially to make independent films. That is all. As we have said before, it is very clear from the BBC statement, and I think even from their own statements, that they are not connected with the Blood Parliament documentary. So arresting them on the basis that they're somehow involved in the release of the Blood Parliament documentary last week is false and malicious. And as far as we understand, the DCI are no longer pursuing that line of thinking. Therefore, they are free to leave. We are just asking for their equipment to be released.
So do you have